What is for you culture of solidarity in these times and how we can produce it? I think that the only way to live in a society based on the value of solidarity is to understand this term as a dominantly political. In that line, I do not identify solidarity with the solidarity of a particular group, family solidarity, or solidarity among friends. These are important elements, of course, but only through policy action the social solidarity is possible, where solidarity would be of fundamental principles in various public policies, such as health, social and the pension system, education, housing, culture, and so on. Namely, the modern solidarity originated in the revolution of the 18th century, and it has been institutionalized in the Republican nation state, after which social movement of the 19th century expanded and concretized the idea of solidarity to the welfare state. The liberal democracy considers solidarity as a superfluous part of social achievement. However, solidarity in modern society coincides with democracy. It is a political category, and it is at the core of the public policies of welfare states. But the problem appears under the influence of deindustrialization, globalization, and internationalization when the public policies were neoliberalized. This consequently removes the idea of solidarity from policy rationale, rhetoric, and discourse, as well as the policy operationalization. Such a globalized society only amplifies effects of exclusion. As Bernhorst pointed out, there will be no solution without the globalization of democratic solidarity, because the potential for solidarity is not enough to solve world problems in modern society that could have been solved earlier within European nation states. And that's the reason why I understand the term of solidarity primarily as a political term. What knowledge we produce in culture and art now, how we should produce and distribute the knowledge. So, if the knowledge is the right word, I don't see that arts and culture during the current global pandemic crisis have produced different kinds of knowledge compared to the previous period. Arts and culture produce knowledge of our world in a way to discover different voices and look below the surfaces, making clear something what was hidden, what was not so obvious. They offer a spectrum of possible interpretation of everyday life. It could be a positive or negative side of the stories, object, appearance, processes, and so on. But it's crucial to be aware that the new knowledge, as well as a new relationship, new collaboration, and the new practices in arts and culture emerge only through the long-term processes that are often valuing themselves. The importance of the process-oriented work in contemporary arts and culture should replace exclusive focus on the results. But when we come to the way of knowledge distribution through arts and culture, one of the most important aspects is related to the interaction with the people, their participation and engagement in arts and culture. This time of uncertainty and fragility show us that participation and engagement are vital as they contribute to the sense of belonging and acceptance, which then contributes to the community strengthening. But one of the obstacles that comes out prominently in this crisis is the absence of equal access. Since the physical distancing hampers organization of public events, it is justified to ask, does culture reach all the people when communication, participation, and engagement are limited to the online channels? Does everyone around the globe have access to the internet and other media used as a channel for arts and culture? The increasing crisis of cultural democracy in Corona times provides an impetus for cultural policy to reimagine participatory practices in culture, the role of cultural institutions and artists, the value of public culture, as well as the support and capacity of vulnerable population in order to build equal opportunities for everyone to participate and engage in culture. Looking at the future, it would be crucial to imagine new approaches to cultural democracy that would offer democratic response and direct citizens' participation. What we learn from the crisis, can we develop different post-crisis modes and conditions of art and cultural production which will allow basic sustainability and reduce the precarious position of cultural workers and artists? I think that the current crisis compels us to revisit the features of contemporary arts and culture. Diverse indicators that have annually increased over the few last decades include obsession with the global economic growth that also affected arts and culture, and followed by result-driven work and constant development based on the economic enrichment, as well as with increasing visibility of expensive objects, then the project logic of financing, financial instability of culture, fragmentation of the cultural workers and the precarious works, inequality in access to culture, and so on. All of these symptoms became more obvious during the crisis, and I think that the new problems appear related to the access to public cultural spaces, the flow of cultural goods and services, travel and mobility of artists and cultural professionals, and so on. This crisis shows us that the culture is extremely fragile, and artists and the cultural professionals are tremendously exposed. Unfortunately, governments have failed to respond to major challenges appearing in a range of spheres of public policies, including arts and culture. But the biggest problem for arts and culture is that the policymakers basically do not understand culture. However, the crisis that emerged as a result of the pandemic can help us to understand the weakness of the existing system, including cultural system. And this crisis brings us, as Pierluigi Sacco stressed recently, a lifetime opportunity in terms of systemic change in arts and culture. But in order to reinvent and justify itself, systemic change in arts and culture would require transformation of many aspects that will produce new arguments, approaches, measures, and mechanisms that will articulate the role of culture in sustainable development and the relevance of culture in contemporary society beyond the instrumental value of arts and culture, and specifically beyond economic values of art and culture. Thus, COVID-19 crisis brings forward the idea of social equality, social states, and maybe universal basic income, how that can be reflected in culture and arts. I think that the principle of egalitarianism, solidarity, and inclusion must be foundation of the future society. Of course, if we want to live in a sustainable world with the equal opportunity for everyone. Since culture has capacity to experiment, create new political approaches, and communicate new possibilities, culture could be the platform for testing and experimenting with the possible and alternative scenario of our futures in terms of many different components that are crucial for our society. But as a first step, arts and culture have to be seen as a part of the system and thus a part of the problem as well as the solution. What political and policy approaches you would foresee for future in the field you work, or how it should be changed in the future? I think that the future political and policy approaches require, first of all, reinventing the public sphere. namely in the context of difficult access and accessibility of culture caused by a number of obstacles such as psychological, social, economic, physical, and many others, as well with the new wave of digitalization as a result of limited mobility caused by measures during the COVID-19 epidemic. I think that the new public spheres need to be built, which will ensure equal opportunities and approaches to culture for all. But another essential aspect in a time of democratic deficit, how I see it, is related to democratization of the cultural system that should imply support for participatory democratic practices. Namely, practices show us all over the world that the participatory approaches could improve dialogue and a level of cooperation among actors involved in a various decision-making process, rise their mutual trust, increase the governance capacity of all involved actors, but also improve the ways of citizens' participation in decision-making and affiliate citizens and experts in the new institutional formats. Invent and experiment with a range of new participatory mechanisms show also their capacity to build the new values, new interactions, new relations, new ways of engagement as well. One of the crucial benefits for policy with the new model of participatory governance, what I found it very meaningful, especially for the post-socialist countries with a strong legacy of public cultural sector, is rethinking the role and the mandate of public cultural institutions and distribution of public resources in a much more appropriate way.